Sandy Springs. Woohoo! Christina, welcome. My neighbor, Oakland, California. All right, very good. All right, so once again, my name is Mo Jones, and welcome to our Excel pivot tables. This is an exclusive online session for our offsite members. And we're going to go ahead and dive in to some pivot tables here. All right. If you've ever used a pivot table before, maybe you've created one from scratch, or maybe you kind of just inherited one, type an X in the chat for me if you have ever interacted with a pivot table. All right, so go ahead and type an X for me. Okay, so quite a few of you have done that. Okay, very good. Okay, yes, we have one no. I'm looking for some no's here. Looking for some no's so that we can kind of take our time and go through our pivot tables here today as well. All right, well, very good. Well, if you have not created one, this is the perfect place for you because we're going to take our time and actually build out our pivot table. If you've used it before, maybe you'll pick up on some new tips and tricks here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my slide deck here. Can everyone see my presentation? Just want to make sure we can see everything. Okay, excellent. Okay, so we'll start off just by talking about, well, what is a pivot table? And the way I like to answer this question is by asking a question, okay? So a pivot table is a powerful tool. So the question I want to ask is, how many of you would like to calculate thousands of records just with the snap of a finger, calculate thousands of records instead of moving things around, right? And sorting and filtering and moving and deleting rows and columns, inserting. Well, that's what a pivot table is for. We can calculate thousands and tens of thousands of rows and records. How many of us would like to summarize multiple fields? Not just one field, but multiple fields. Maybe you have a sales field. Maybe you have an orders field, a quantity field. We can do all of that in a fraction of a second. The pivot table will do that for us. And then finally, how many of us would like to analyze data, right? So find comparisons within your large data set. I've seen some data sets out there. Some are very, very big, 13,000 rows of data, 30 columns. I've seen some of them. And so how do you kind of just make sense of all of that, right? So you want to find comparisons, you want to find patterns, you want to find trends. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at today, right? So really, we're going to be constructing a pivot table. So so at the end of this session, you will have learned how to create a pivot table from a table. You will learn how to filter pivot tables. You will learn how to use kind of like the little AI tool that's built in. I like to refer to it as like a little robot. It's called a slicer. It's really going to help you filter your pivot table, your data really, really nicely. And then we'll finish it off by creating a nice visual in the form of a pivot chart here as well, right? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share the file with you. Go ahead and grab the link to the file. I want all of you to go ahead and open up that file. Just give me 1 second. I'll put that in the chat for everyone. Okay. So go ahead and click on that link. It's going to bring you to a web browser. So what you will need to do, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and demo that for you. I'm going to open up my browser, show you what it looks like. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, so here's my Chrome browser. And so it opens like this. This is just read only, right? You cannot do anything with it. So what I want you to do, go ahead and click on the File menu. Okay, so click on the File menu, and you're going to go ahead and click on Save As. I'm going to download a copy of that file. And depending on where you have that downloaded, just go ahead and open it up. I'm going to go ahead and open up my file here. And here we go. We're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and close this screen and maximize my window. And I'm going to go into Enable Editing. All right. And we are good to go. All right. Just gonna show my full ribbon here. Okay, very good. So you should have that open. Let me go ahead and just move some things around here so I can see the chat. We'll have two monitors here as well, right? So if you have that open, excellent. So we have here are our objectives. Make sure that you're on the very first worksheet tab. Notice we do have quite a few down, actually only 4, right? We're just gonna be going from left to right. We'll start on the objectives. We'll talk about orders. We'll have a little time of reflection and we'll build our table here as well. But either way, we want to view some basic sales data, observe the challenges, and then we're going to go ahead and view a pivot table and observe the benefits. And then once we do that, we're going to go ahead and create a pivot table. We'll create some queries and some slicers, and then we'll go ahead and explore a pivot chart as well. So go ahead and type an X in the chat for me if you have that, if you're good to go. If you have your file open, make sure that you have that open here. So go ahead and type an X in the chat for me. Okay, very good. All right, let's see, just counting here. No, I'm not going to count all of them. Not going to count all of them. All right, very good. Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in here. Let's go ahead and click on our orders table here. I'm sorry, our orders worksheet tab. Okay, I have a sheet 1 down here. You don't have that, so don't worry about that. Go ahead and click on the orders tab here. And so what we're looking at is a basic order form. Okay, so we just have a couple of fields here. We have the date of the order ID, the associate that made the sale. Each associate is affiliated with a particular region. And we have several products here as well. And we have units, we have the price, and we actually have the sale. Now I have a little function over here. It's called the unique function. It's just kind of grabbing all of the associates that are in this data set. Okay, so we have all these associates here. And then here is a list of our products over here as well. So let's examine this data really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and click anywhere inside of my table here. Let's see how big this data set is. Right? Go ahead and press Control End. So press Control plus End, and let me know how many rows of data are we working with here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the chat. So press Control End, END. Yeah, 1003, right? Lots of data. All the way down to row, I'm sorry, 10,003. I said 1003. So this is down to row 10,003. Press Control Home to go back to the top here. All right. And so here we go. So here's what happens. Your team leader comes to you and says, hey, these are all the orders. Everything is up to date. I want you to create a report on this. All right. I'm using Office 365. So this is the current version that I'm using here. Right. So all of our trainings are going to be the latest. So it's Office 365. Right. Excellent. Okay. And so we can anticipate some questions, right? Such as maybe what was the highest, what was the highest grossing region? Who was the highest grossing associate, right? Or what was the total sale of everything? So we can anticipate some questions here. So typically what we would do, we would, probably use these filters here, maybe filter by region, right? Go ahead and grab the data, filter by product, and then maybe drop in some functions such as the, such as the average, sum, count, different functions like that as well. But that takes a lot of time. We don't really have the time to get all of that done. So we have a little dilemma here. How are we going to go ahead and do this? Well, I'm going to show you a pivot table. Maybe this is your first time seeing it. And let's see if we can answer some of these questions here, right? So you don't have this. Just going to go ahead and click here. Let me expand this a little bit. So here's a fully functional pivot table, right? Now, based on this table, we can answer some questions. such as what is the grand total of all the sales? Well, look at this, our pivot table, just all of those different, I'll go ahead and put this in the chat again. Here's the file. Sorry about that. Okay. And Kim, if you can help me share out that file as people come in, that would be great. Thank you. Or share that link. Okay. And so here's our pivot table just giving us answers. So we can see the grand total of all sales, right? Is 915,000. We get the breakdown for each region. So in the East region, we had 147K. And look at this, we actually have our products as well. So the grand total for our Aspen product is 44,121. So we can answer a lot of different questions here on this data set just by taking a look at this pivot table. It's spitting out all of the information for us. So guess what? What if I want to see how my associates perform? Look what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to remove my region. Click on my associate. And look at that. I can go ahead and collapse everything. We just go ahead, and it's okay. We're going to go ahead and do this together in just a little bit. But look at that. And in a fraction of a second, it returned from that 10,000 rows of data, it returned the values for us very, very quickly, right? And as you can see with the pivot table, it's just like building blocks. We can just move things around, and we can answer a lot of different questions here. If I wanted to focus more on, let's see, my Carlotta product, I can expand it. And now I can see how each of my associates performed here as well. Okay. So again, I'm just showing you a fully functional pivot table. I'm just going to move some things around here. I'm going to remove my product. And it's okay, we're going to come back here. But either way, here is our pivot table. Right? So I want you to go over to the Reflect tab. So click on the Reflect tab here. And I want you to just quickly, just based on what we just took a look at, go ahead and name 2 benefits of a pivot table. So what do you think are 2 benefits of a pivot table? You can type it in the chat if you want to as well. And I'll just look for a few responses here. Breakdown, yeah. Grouping data, very good. Easy to manipulate, yep. Easy to analyze. You can answer questions. Yeah, Dan, I like that, right? That's what we came here to do. We came to answer questions in our data. So very good. Yep, data insights. Exactly, exactly. Detailed information, right? Summarizing, reducing data, exactly. No more scrolling through 10,000 rows of data. The pivot table does that for us and just combines everything into one for us. Saves a lot of time, very, very good. And as you can see, the table is pivoting as we're moving things, as we're changing the view, it's changing all of the numbers for us. Okay. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and head on over to the data sheet tab. And let's go ahead and build out our pivot table. All right. So click on this link here. It should bring you right to your data tab. All right. And so here's that table again. We're going to go ahead and create a pivot table. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Zoom annotating tools here. All right. It's the same data set, just on a different tab. And here's our tasks, right? We may or may not get to all of these here. We want to go ahead and summarize the sale by the East region. So we're going to figure out, well, what is the sum of sale for the East? What are Edwin Malone's sum of sales? How many orders did we have in the West region? And how many orders did we have for the quad product here? Let's go ahead and click anywhere on our table. We do not need to highlight the entire table. So let's go ahead and click anywhere inside of the table. And then we're going to go ahead and click on the Insert tab. So I'll click on Insert. And right over here, we have our tables command group all the way to the left. I want to go ahead and click on a pivot table. Now there's a little cheat sheet here. There are some recommended pivot tables that you can click on, and this will actually build the table for you. But we want to do this from scratch. If we have time, we'll come back to this here. I want us to click on pivot table. Again, make sure that you're clicked anywhere inside. Click on any cell inside of your table. Click on the Insert tab, click on pivot table. We're just going to go ahead and select the defaults here. We want to move it to a new worksheet. So let's just go ahead and click OK. Some of these other options are a little more advanced. We want to keep it simple. Just click OK to place it on a brand new worksheet so we can have a nice clean canvas. Okay. And I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit. Just hold down my control key and scroll up. I have a really big monitor here. All right. Okay, let me clear my drawings. Okay, so here's our blank canvas. If you take a look right here is our blank canvas. The first thing I like to do is rename the worksheet tab. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this sheet here. And I want to call this pivot 1. I like to do this because a lot of times I lose the pivot table, trying to figure out which worksheet tab was it on. So go ahead and rename that to pivot 1. All right. And we'll just follow the cues here. It says to build a report, choose fields from the pivot table field list. So if I click on, the pivot table fields list is right over here to our right. Okay. So really, really nicely. So we're going to go ahead and use this to build out our pivot table. Now there's two things I like to do over here in the pivot table fields. And the two things I like to do is I like to sort all of my fields so that they're sorted in alphabetical order. The next thing I like to do is I like to change the view. I don't really like this top to bottom view. I want to have a side-by-side view. So I want to have my fields on one column and my area boxes on the other column, right? If you're on a Mac, depending on your version, you may not have this feature. So for those of you who are on Windows, I'll go ahead and demonstrate it. I'll click on my gear icon here. And I want to choose that second option that says field section and area section side by side. Okay. So this view is a little better for me because now I can see if I have a really long list of fields, I can see everything there. Second thing I want to do is sort A to Z. So I'll click on the gear icon again. I want to sort everything A to Z. So now my fields are sorted in alphabetical order. Right? And I'm good to go. All right. So when you're building out your pivot table, you have 4 boxes over here. Excel refers to them as areas. I just call them boxes or area boxes. Filters, rows, columns, and values. I always like to start with the values first because that's kind of the big ticket item here. So the very first, the most important value here is our cell, right? Now I can do either one of two things. I can drag the cell to here if I want to, or I can have Excel just build the table for me. So I'm actually just going to click on the checkbox next to cell. And because it's a numerical value, right, it actually drops it right into the values box here as well, right? So that's what it does for me here. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to share my application here. Right? Some of you are saying the screen is a little too small. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to share the app. And I'm going to make it a little smaller here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, let's see. Okay, is that better? Is that a better view there for everyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. All right. Okay, so right now we just have the sum of sales. We can answer a question here already. Now we're missing the dollar signs, right? So I want to go ahead and make sure that the accounting, I like to use the accounting format because it gives it gives some space between the dollar sign and the actual number. So in order to do that, on the right inside of my pivot table here, for the sum of sale, if you, there's a little drop down here. So if you click on the small drop down, you'll get a drop down list. Click on where it says value field settings. I'm going to click on value field settings. And it provides me with this dialog box here. We'll come back to this box in just a little bit. There's other things that we can do. But what I'm concerned about is the number format. So I'll click on number format here. And I want to grab the accounting format. Again, I want to grab the accounting format because it kind of evens or spaces my table out. All right, so I'll choose accounting. I'll click OK. I'll click OK again. So now I have my dollar signs and I'm good to go. So the next thing I need to ask you, well, was, what else do I want to add to my table? You do not have to, I'll say this twice, you do not have to add all the fields to your pivot table, okay? You do not have to add all the fields to your pivot table. What you'll find is, as you're answering questions, you're going to be rearranging the table according to the questions that you're trying to answer. So right now, let's just focus on our region. So if I click on region here, okay, so it drops it into the rows, right? So depending on the type of data that you are working with, it will place it either in a row, column, or a value, right? Typically values, numerical values will be placed into the values box. Most other items will be placed into the rows. Okay, so now we can answer some questions. We have our grand total. We have our breakdown for all of our regions here as well. Let's go ahead and see how our let's see. We have a lot of associates. So I don't want to put them in the rows yet. Maybe we can do that a little later. Let's go ahead and focus maybe on our products. So click on products. So when you click on products, notice something happened here, right? We now have two fields in one of our boxes here. So when that happens, it creates a hierarchy. So notice, because the region is on top, so here's the parent, it's the East, and now the child object becomes the individual products here as well. Okay, so you can have more than one in one of these boxes here, but again, there is a hierarchy. So whatever is on the top will be the parent, and everything else will be the child as an indented list or indented view. Right? Now we can change that if we want to. Go ahead and drag the products to the top of the row. Just drag it to the top so that in your row, you have the product on the top, and then you have a region on the bottom. And look at that. So now we get a nice breakdown, right? Here is our products. And here is the performance for each of the regions here. Okay. Now our table is growing because we have a lot of products and we have a lot of regions. So 64 rows of data. But guess what? We can simplify it. Because again, we don't have to show everything. If someone just says, hey, let's just see how we did with our products, well, look what I can do. Notice right next to the product, we have a small little minus sign here, a little button, right? So we can either expand it or collapse it. So if you click on it, notice how it collapses it. Now it turns to a plus sign. So I can toggle it. I can collapse it, expand, collapse, expand. What if I want to collapse everything? Well, go ahead and right click on that button. And you'll see this menu all the way to around the middle. It says expand, collapse. Well, look what I can do. I can either expand the entire field, or I can collapse the entire field. And look at that. So this is a better view if I'm explaining my breakdown for my products, because now I can see that my quad product had the highest sales out of all the items here as well. And so now someone says, oh, great. So quad was the highest. Can we get a breakdown to see how quad performed in each region? And this is the beauty of the pivot table. Check this out. So if I click on the plus sign here, look at that. So now I get an individual breakdown for how my quad product performed over the different regions. And from here, I can see that in the Midwest, we had the highest sales in the Midwest region for my quad product. Really, really cool. All right. So again, just kind of constructing your table as necessary as you're answering questions. A good rule of thumb: try to keep everything in the view of your actual worksheet here. If you find yourself scrolling, you don't really want to do that. Okay, so just kind of make sure that you drill down to find exactly what you're looking for. All right. So let's see. I'll address some questions here. Let's see. Okay, thank you, Monica, for answering that. Let's see. How do I show the function bar like yours on the top? Spelling, bold, font, color, counting, number, format, wrap text, signature. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Let's see. Ms. Clarabelle, yes, you can collapse all the fields at once if you right click on any of these icons here. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and expand the entire field. So if I right click on that button, go down to the middle, you have the expand collapse option. You can either expand the entire field at once, or you can collapse the entire field here at once. Okay. So I'll go ahead and collapse the entire field. Okay. Okay, so my quick access toolbar. Okay, so someone was asking a question about this here. So this is my quick access toolbar. I just kind of, so this comes with Excel, right? So this is just a quick access toolbar. You can add commands there simply by right clicking on a command and say add to the quick access toolbar. You'll get that. Right? Thank you for clarifying that question. I was looking at my pivot table, like, what? I don't see any signatures there. All right, thank you. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and just reconstruct our table here. We're going to talk about filtering. So let's go ahead and let's place the product into the columns. And I'm sorry, let's place the product into the rows and the region into the columns. Okay, so we're just resetting our table. So make sure that you have in the rows, you have your product. In the columns, you have your region. And then the values, you have your sum of sale. Okay. And let's talk about filtering. There's one box that we have not used. In the box to the top right here, here's our filter box. And this basically allows us to run some filters here. Let's go ahead and drag the associate into the filters box here. All right, so drag the associate there. And notice when we drag the associate there, it placed a small filter here at the very top of our worksheet in cell A1. And so right now we're showing all the associates. If I want to click on this drop down, right, if I just want to see how Alan performed, if you click on Alan, all of the data, all of these numbers are going to change. They're only going to correspond to what Alan has produced. Okay, so click on Alan, Ramos, and click OK. And notice Alan only sold in the Midwest. So the only region that's showing up is the Midwest. Here's our grand total. Okay. So really nice feature there. We can select multiple persons. So if we wanted to select multiple items, right, it turns into checkboxes for us as well. And now we can select multiple items here. Okay. Susan, if you lost your pivot table fields, what typically happens if when you click away from the table, the field list goes away. So make sure that you're interacting with the table. So if you click back here on the pivot table, you'll see the fields. If for some reason you closed it by accident, so I'm going to go ahead and close it here. I'll show you how to get it back. You can right click on your pivot table. And on the bottom, you can click on where it says show field list. And that will put it back for you. Show field list. There we go. All right, very good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and reset my filter. It's very important when you run filters on your data set, remember to reset your filters, okay? Because then your data is going to be off. So I'm just going to go ahead and select everyone from my filter here. Make sure everyone is selected. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Right, so my table is back to normal. So very important, when you run filters, remember to clear them after you finish here. Okay, we also have a few built-in filters here. So we'll take a look at these two, and then we'll take a look at slicers. So because I have something in the row, I always have a row label filter and a column label filter. Right? So let's click on the row label. And look at that. So we can go ahead and we can choose one of these options here. Right? So we have the Aspen, so we can choose a different product. Go ahead and select only the Aspen product and type in the chat, what is the total sales for our Aspen product? Okay. So click on the row label and what is the total sale for our Aspen product? Okay, so we got 44,121. All right, so I'll click on my row label. I'll choose the Aspen product. Okay, and look at that. So it gives us a nice breakdown, gives us the grand total, and it shows us the totals for each region. This is just really, really cool. It's like magic. It's just moving things around. It would take us so long, such a very long time to construct these different views and these different types of, data analysis. But the pivot table is just pivoting. It's just moving. It's moving things around like a three-dimensional cube and just spitting out information for us. Let's go ahead and clear that filter. So click on the row label and just click on clear filter from product. Okay, again, we want to reset our table. Let's take a look at another filter here, the column label. It works the same way the row label does. So if I just want to focus on my Midwest region, what were the total sales for my Midwest region? Okay, what are the total sales for Midwest? Some fast typers here, 32, 329. Right? Yep. So really, really nice. So it's giving me the breakdown of the product, the region, the grand total. Really, really nice here. So let's go ahead and clear that filter. So I was kind of setting you up here. I showed you the filter by using the filter box. I showed you the filters that are kind of built in here as well. But let's take a look at some slicers here. Right? Slicers are one of my favorite tools in Excel. Click anywhere on the table, just make sure you're interacting with it. And you'll notice that you're going to be awarded or gifted two contextual tabs here. One is called Pivot Table Analyze, and one is called Design. Now, very important, if I click away from my table, that goes away. It only shows up when I click on my table. If you're on another version, maybe Office 2016, this may say something different. But either way, you should have some pivot table tools up here that you can use. Right? Let's go ahead and click on Pivot Table Analyze. And on the Pivot Table Analyze, this is what allows us to use a lot of the cool tools, such as insert a slicer. Okay, we can insert a pivot chart, different things that we can do. But right now, let's just focus on our slicer. Now we can actually right-click. There's other ways that we can insert a slicer. We can actually right-click on the fields, and we can say add as a slicer from there. But I want to keep it uniform. We'll do it from the ribbon tab here. So click on your table, click on the Pivot Table Analyze, and click on Insert Slicer. I'll leave this annotated for you. Okay. So Nico, the option is right here on the Pivot Table Analyze tab. Okay. Now notice we have a slicer for all of our fields here: associate, date, order. Let's go ahead and insert a slicer. Let's insert two, maybe one for the region, so we can get a regional breakdown. And let's insert one for the product. Actually, we want to be careful because we have a lot of products. And so our slicer menu is going to be very, very large. Okay, region, we only have 4, so that's a good one. But it's okay. We'll choose a product, and we'll just kind of reorder the column structure of this slicer here. So choose product and region. Let's go ahead and click OK. Right, and here are my two slicers. So here's one for product, and here's one for region. Now, what exactly are slicers? Well, the best way to show you what a slicer is, go ahead and click on the East button on your slicer and tell me what happens to your pivot table. So click on the East button on your region slicer. Let me know what happens. Yeah, so it shows the East region, right? So if I click East, so this is like a little dashboard over here that I can use to control my pivot table, right? And I can use these together. So what if I just want to focus on, let's say, the Aspen product? Look what I just did. I just drilled down very, very, drilled all the way down to looking for, give me the breakdown for the Aspen product sales in the East region. Pretty cool. Again, it will take us a very long time to construct something like this here as well. All right. So the reason you would use these over the built-in filters, it's for speed, and it's just one click. All right. And one of the things that's really cool, look what I can do. Let me go ahead and clear my filters here. Right. I'm actually going to I want to be able to see all of these here. So one thing that you can do with the slicers, I'll just demo this here. We do get a slicer ribbon tab here. I want to change the columns here. So I want to click on slicer and I'll change the columns just for my products here so I can see them a little better. So maybe I want 2 columns. Right? And so now I just changed it to 2 columns and now I can see them a little better here side by side. If you want to, you can change the style as well. So if you want to make this green, you can do that. Go ahead and give those a quick color. Okay. So the question was, why would we want to use the slicers over the built-in filters? Well, let's take a look at what we can do. Let's go ahead and click on the multi-select tool so that we can select multiple items. Right? So the multi-select tool is right here to the top right of the slicer. I'll highlight that for you. Go ahead and click on that. And once it's active, it should change color here. And now I can go ahead and select multiple items. So I can do this. I can kind of drag and select things that I want to here. All right. So now I'm just focusing on the flat tops, the quad, the sunset, the sunbelt. Right. So really nice option here for me to use that. Right. If you prefer to do that by clicking on the row label and choosing them individually, that's perfectly fine. But I prefer to do it this way. Right? You can either click on things individually, or you can go ahead and select them, do a mass select like that. Okay. So I just find it to be a little quicker. Right? It's as quick as doing that. And then you can combine them. Right? So I can do the same thing here. Maybe I just want to see the East and the West. I'm sorry, East and Midwest. So there we go. Right. So I don't know. I just kind of like the idea of having a little dashboard, little command center that I could use to just kind of, manage my pivot table here as well. Right. Very good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and we can actually delete these slicers if you want to. Just make sure that you reset them, clear the filters before you do that. Right. When I get them out of the way, I'll just click on the border and press delete. Gets rid of the slicers for me. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we'll go until about another 7 minutes here. We'll take a look at a pivot chart. But before we do that, let's go ahead and change one thing here. So far, we've been looking at the sum of the sales. But let's go ahead and move some things around on our table so that we can get another visual. What if we want to go ahead and maybe, count the amount of orders, let's say, count the orders by region. How many orders did we have by region? How many orders did we have by product? So let's see how we can utilize that here as well. So Leslie, to delete the slicers, just click on it, click on the border, and just press delete. And that will remove the slicers for you. Just make sure that you clear the filters before you delete it, because they will remain active. Right. So let's go ahead and clear our pivot table. Let's just uncheck everything here. Okay, so now I'm back to normal. And the order ID is a good indicator of how many orders we have. So let's go ahead and drag the order ID into the values. Okay. So if you drag the order ID, it wants to give us the sum, but we want to change that. We don't want the sum. We want the count of all the orders. So go ahead and right click on the actual number here. There's a couple of ways that we can get to this, but just to keep it simple, go ahead and right click on the actual number. And if you go down on your menu here, you see summarize values by. It's currently summarizing as a sum. Change that to count. Okay, so once again, right click on the actual value. On that menu, you want to summarize the values by count. Right? This is kind of the quick way to do it. Typically, you would do it by clicking on the value field settings option down here. But either way, so now we're good. Now we have the count. Well, the count of what? What do we want? We have the count of orders, but let's go ahead and add our region in here. Let's go ahead and click on region. And so now we get a nice breakdown. We can clearly see that we had 1,703 orders in the East region, 3,603 in the Midwest, 1,665 in the South, and 3,029 in the West. Okay. So just showing you that you can change it, right? And this is nice, right? We can get a nice breakdown of that. If we want it by product, go ahead and remove the region and click on product. And here's a breakdown of our products. So we had 652 orders of the Aspen product. And by the way, you can sort this. Go ahead and click on your home tab. I'm sorry, on your data tab, and click on sort Z to A. And you can sort it. As long as your pivot table is constructed like in a very basic way like this, it's just one level, you can sort. You can sort large to small. So we can see that the quad had the highest here. The sorting gets complicated when you have multiple levels and a lot of fields on there. But in this case, it's very simple. You can sort A to Z, or you can sort Z to A, right? Or you can sort by product name. All right, very good. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's see, we're going to do a pivot chart, but I wanted to do one more thing before we did that. Let's see, let's go ahead and add the region here. And let's see how much data that is. Okay, right. So now we can answer questions on the region as well and the actual product. So we get the count, we get the breakdown. So for the Aspen, 652 total, in the East, 125 orders of the Aspen, in the West, 194. Very good. Okay, all right. Last task, let's go ahead and create a pivot table. And Excel is just going to take a look at our data. It's going to create our pivot table for us. It's going to make it work. So we just want to create a nice visual here as well. So let's go ahead and create a pivot chart from this data set here. Let's see what we can get. I was going to reset the table for the prices and the sales, but let's see what kind of chart we can get here. Let's click on Pivot Table Analyze. And let's see if we can make sense of this chart. If not, we'll just reset our table. So click on Pivot Table Analyze. Let's click on Pivot Chart. Yeah. And so it kind of gives you a preview of what the chart will look like here. So we have clustered column charts. We have stat column. And as you click on each of them, it's giving you a preview of what the data would look like here as well. Right? You can make this a line chart if you want to, a pie chart if you want to. Actually, the pie chart looks pretty good. Maybe I'll do that. Right. But let's go ahead and use the clustered column chart. And let's just go ahead and click OK. And let's see if it gives us any useful data here. All right, so here is my pivot chart. And I'm just going to make this a little big. I'm going to close my field over here on the right. Okay, and this is a little tough because I have so many different products on here. That's kind of making it a little hard to see down here on the bottom. But we do have some nice filters in here that we can focus on. So maybe we can just focus on a region. Let's go ahead and choose. Let's just choose the East region. Okay, so that makes it a little better for me. Okay, so here are my products. So it's giving me the count, right? Here's my chart showing me the count of orders in the East region for each product. So if I just mouse over each of these, so in the East, for example, the Aspen, I had 125 orders. And over here, we can clearly see that the quad was the highest seller at 268. Okay. Now with the, so as you can see, these are connected. So our chart is connected to our table. So any filters that I run on my chart is going to move the data around on my pivot table. And conversely, any filters that I run on my pivot table is going to update my chart here as well. Okay. So if I just go, let's say, I just want to focus on the doublers on my here. So notice how it changes the data on my pivot table and on my pivot chart here as well. Okay. Very good. Now with the pivot chart, I'll reset my table here. I'll just clear my filter from the product. With the pivot chart, the last thing we'll talk about here before we enter our Q&A, we have two buttons here to the top right, and these two buttons will help us to kind of manage this table, this chart rather. So we can turn things off or on, right? So we can turn on the data labels, we can turn on the chart title, we can turn it off or on. And just right here from these buttons, we can go ahead and manipulate our pivot chart as well. You can also manipulate the pivot chart from the ribbon tab by clicking on the design tab here. Okay. If you're not a fan of using these buttons, you can simply click on the pivot chart, click on design. And under design, you can see you have the different layouts, different chart styles that you can use here as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of the styles and we'll wrap up here. So click on your pivot chart, click on that paintbrush to the top right, that little icon, and you have 14 different styles to choose from. And as you just kind of mouse over each one, gives you a nice preview of what it would look like. This is a popular one here. This is style number 9. Really nice dark theme here. So go ahead and choose one of those layouts, one of those styles rather, any one that you like. I'll choose this one, nice little shadowy effect. And if you want to take it a step further, you can change the color. So you have different colors to choose from here, different color options. You have 4 colorful palettes, and we have some monochrome palettes down here. These are dependent on the theme that you currently have selected. All right, so very good. So I'll just make this a nice orange, and I'm good to go. Last thing I'll do, I know I said that already. Last thing I'll do, I want to move this chart to its own worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click on the chart. Okay. So I'll right-click on one of these handles here. So I'll right-click. And about halfway down on that menu, it says Move Chart. I want to go ahead and move this chart to a new worksheet. So if I click on Move Chart, I want to move it to a new sheet and click OK. Yeah. So here's my chart. It's on its own worksheet. The grid lines are removed. If I want, I can collapse the ribbon a little bit here to give me a little more room to present my chart. You can still use the filters, they're still available. And you can even make changes to the chart here as well. All right, very good. It's 9:18. I'm going to go ahead and stop here. All right, and just want to let you know that this is a part of our Excel Intermediate course. Okay, so our Excel Intermediate course, it is a full day course. This one is from module 3. Yeah, so this is from, no, module 4. So from our Excel Intermediate module 4. So if you're interested, go ahead and sign up for the course for the full, all the full features here of the pivot table. All right. I'll put a link to that in the chat so that you can see the direct link to sign up. And at this point, let me know if you have any questions. Sure, you can add legends to the chart. If you click on the chart here, so notice the chart element is a legend. So you can either turn the legend off or you can turn it on. So you can definitely do that. So I encourage you just to kind of explore this menu here. Right. And what you'll notice is you'll see a small black arrow right to the right. That gives you more options, such as, do I want to show my horizontal and vertical axis, or just one or neither? Right. So you do have options there as well. But good question. Good question. All right. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, congrats. Hope you were able to learn some new things, or if this was the first time creating a pivot table, that it was a good experience for you. Pivot tables are a highly sought after feature in Excel. So go ahead and practice. Make sure that you hold on to what you learned today as well. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome, everyone. Have a great day. Have a wonderful weekend. TGIF. All right. Make sure you hold on to that file that you completed. You can use it as a reference as well. You're welcome. Oh, here's the link to the class. Sorry about that. I was supposed to put that in here. So Hector, the tool I used, Zoom has a tool built in. The annotating tools are built into it. So you can use that. I also use another tool called Zoomit. So ZOOMIT. That's another one to use, but I prefer to use the one built into Zoom. Okay, so I have a question here. When you pivot the data by product in row and column region, how do you filter by a dollar threshold for East region of 15,000? So to filter for a dollar value, let's see. Show my field list. Let me reset my table here and take a look. There are my filters here. Okay, so if you want to kind of limit the amount that shows up here, so instead of showing, you only want to show, let's say, greater than 300,000. Yes, I teach the full class. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up here. Yes, I teach the full class as well. So please sign up. All right, I did put the link in here. Yeah, there we go. So go ahead and sign up for that class here. Okay, so let's see. Let's see, value filters. Let's see if I can use this here. It's greater than 300,000. Yeah, so that's how you do it. So one run, you can use, so even though we don't have a specific filter for the sum of sale, what you can do is click on the row label. And notice that you have two sections for the filters. You have one for label filters and you have one for value filters. So if you click on the value filters option, that refers to the actual sum of sale. So in this case, I just chose the greater than, and I put in the value 300,000 in here, and it's only showing the region that exceeded 300,000. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, let's see here. And Excel 2013, the slicer, let's see. Let me pull up Microsoft's document here to see the slicers are offered in the 2013 version. Give me 1 second. Let's see. And let me stop sharing my screen here. Okay, so I'm just trying to see if it's available in 2013. One second. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing slashes in 2013, but I'm trying to give you an exact answer here. Just one moment. Monica, your table did not have row labels or column labels of the actual field names. What version are you using, Monica? What version of Excel are you using? Yes, slices are available. According to what I'm seeing here, slices are available in 2013. In 2010, it looks like as well. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, let's see another question here. Q&A. Questions. All right, let me take a look and see if I can find out why you would not have the row labels. I'm going to take a look at the field settings. And let's see. Okay, pivot table options. Display. Okay, so Monica, click on your let me show you this here really quickly. See if this will help. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on your pivot table and then click on pivot table analyze. You want the options. Let's go ahead and pull up the options here. Okay, so pivot table and then pivot table analyze. Click on the options. Head on over to the display area. Let's see, is it display? And this option right here, it says display field captions and filter dropdowns. Make sure that that's checked off. Let me see if I turn that off. Yeah, mine goes away. So to get it back, click on pivot table analyze, click on options, go to display, and just make sure that that option is selected. Display field captions and filter dropdowns. Okay, and that should fix it for you. Okay, let me know if that works for you. Ben, are you still there? Is Ben still there? Okay, I'm not sure. I know a few of you are asking about the recording. I'm not sure if it will be available on YouTube. Ben left the session, so I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't have an answer for you on the recording there. So, okay. So Monica, did that work? Were you able to see your no, just remove the name of the field. That's interesting. Okay. Not sure. I mean, that's where you would actually turn that feature off or on. Are you using your work computer or are you using a are you using your personal computer? Okay, not sure. Okay, the recording will be available on YouTube. Okay, so go to our YouTube channel, YouTube Learnit channel. I was just notified by Ben that it will be made available on our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel is just Learnit. I'll put the link in the chat here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so there's a link to our YouTube channel. So enjoy the recording. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And congratulations. Thank you all for participating and attending. And hopefully you learned a lot of new tips and tricks here as well. that being said, have a wonderful day. I'm going to go ahead and end the session here as well. If you have any other comments, go ahead and join our Learnit YouTube page and communicate with us as well. You're welcome, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Take care. You're welcome. Welcome, everyone. Have a great weekend.